Good evening everybody. We've got Chris Townsend in the Scottish Highlands with us once again, and we've been walking hither and thither the last few days, so check out those videos. We're going to have a look and see what he brought with him this trip. So Chris, what delicacies did you bring with you that you can show us that were particularly helpful and useful?
Delicacies.
That's food, isn't it?
I immediately thought food. My food bag's over there. I'll have to reach out for it.
Not food.
Not food.
What items of kit? Well, you can't expect me to get the right word, can you? So what items of kit did you bring with you on our little excursion?
On any trip, I'll always take gear that I might need, and sometimes there are items you don't need at all. For example, I've got a thick insulated jacket. It's never come out of its stuff sack because overall the weather has been very mild. I mean, we've had one night when my thermometer made the overnight low minus 0.5. but I was in my sleeping bag when that happened. Otherwise, the temperatures have been 7, 8, 9, so I haven't needed that jacket. But at this time of year, which would have been nice, we'd had clear, frosty weather, I might have been wearing it every morning and every evening because it might have been below freezing, but that hasn't happened. What I have worn far more often than I always hope on a trip are the waterproofs, because we've had a loss of rain. So the waterproof jackets and yesterday the waterproof over trousers have had more usage than expected, but again, of course, they're things you always take. So, you know, I always hope they're the ones that stay in the bottom of the pack and I forget all about them, but you don't go without them. In terms of clothing, I think the success of this trip, which has been even better than I thought, is this, which is Rab Vaporize, which is get the right zip. It's effectively a light windproof, not fully windproof because it's designed to be highly breathable. It's Pertex Quantum Air, but it's lined inside with a mesh lining in two different weights. This one being more open mesh, thinner and more breathable, and this one a bit thicker for warmth, depending what they call body mapping, which fit of the body it is. I mean, the lightweight stuff goes all the way down the sides and so on, and under the arms where you're likely to sweat a lot. But this has proved more versatile than I expected, in that when we were out, for example, we spent one day, we went up into the high corries of Ben Averd to have a look at them, because it was a very windy day and we thought it was too windy for the tops. It was windy enough in the corries. This was all I needed. Because it wasn't that cold, the wind resistance was adequate in those conditions. But then at other times, I've worn it under the waterproof.
Right.
When it's been wet and windy.
Come on.
And it's worked well too. It's been breathable and it's kept me warm. So effectively, this is like having a very thin fleece or a thick base layer or medium weight base layer and a very light wind shell combined together. I mean, outside of summer, when I think it would be too warm, I think it's a great, mid layer and outer layer when the weather's not too severe. Right. So I've been quite, I've worn it every day. Virtually all day. Yeah. And I've been surprised, in the evenings when it's been 7, 8 degrees, I've still been warm enough. I haven't put anything else on. I have got, which is also successful, if I can find it. Where is it? Oh, it's over there. Just a second, I'll reach this. Okay. A new thin insulated top from Berghaus, which is incredibly light. It's 290 grams. It's actually lighter than this.
Oh, right.
But it's a lot warmer.
Right, okay.
And this is, I've worn this a couple of times when it's been chilly, or when, you know, I felt a bit damp. I haven't worn it as much as I thought I would. However, last night when we did a midnight retreat from a ridiculously windy camp, where I'd realised I wasn't going to get any sleep, and when conditions are like that, I always think, am I going to sit here hoping that the tent doesn't blow down for the next 8 hours of darkness, or am I going to move on and see if I can find somewhere better? I thought, let's move on. Now, I'd nipped out of the tent to see if I could tension it a bit more, and I put this on then, just over this base layer, and I thought, well, I'll keep it on, and that worked well in the very strong but not that cold wind.
Right,
and it was dry, but as we walked down, so
and you didn't get too hot with that on top of that.
I wasn't wearing this. I'd already taken this off because I got in my sleeping bag. I haven't been sleeping in this. I'd be too hot. So I'd already taken this off.
So you
and this was, and the reason I put this on when I got out of the tent was because it was rolled up and acting as a pillow. So it was just there under my head. So you know, because obviously this synthetic insulation, it makes a much better pillow than this one does. I mean, this one tends to be just sort of flat, you know, whereas obviously this is, you know.
You wrap anything around it to make a pillow?
Put it in a stuff sack.
You put it in
a small stuff sack, you know, and then it can expand a bit, and then it's quite soft as a pillow. But this is quite a few years ago, probably about at least 10, Rab made a garment like this, which was superb. And then they discontinued it, and I was very sad about that. I've written a few times because I've reviewed it again and said, what a shame they no longer make it. Well, it's got a different name, but now they do. This is effectively the same thing. I think the shell fabric's slightly different, but it's the same weight, it's the same hood, same pockets, you know, same idea that I've never understood, that apparently if you can wear it inside out if you want. And it's more breathable, but I've never actually noticed any significant difference. I haven't tried it with this one, but with the old one, which was the same, I tried it. I think the idea is that, I don't think it's more breathable, it's not just, the idea is it's not as warm, because if you have, what is the inside of this, if you have this side, which is less windproof, on the outside, then the wind will take more heat away, so you won't be as hot, whereas this side is more windproof. But as I say, when I tried it, you know, I went out for walks, and every hour I turned it inside out and continued, and I had never noticed any appreciable difference, you know. And it just seems logical that this side's got the pockets, the inside hasn't, so you know, you wear it this way round, so you've got access to the pockets. But this is, I think, is, you know, is excellent. In colder weather, quite a bit colder weather, I probably wear this rather than this, because it's warmer. But it would have to be very cold for me to walk, you know, very far in this with, you know, with a pack, unless it was like last night. You're stumbling in the dark trying to find somewhere else, you know, to camp. I wasn't really bothered about whether I was comfortable or not. You know, it didn't matter.
I think you've got Uncle Slug on your.
Oh yeah, I said there's a few slugs around here. I mean, we're camped in damp woodland. Because of the weather we've had the last few days, it feels nice and dry in here. But it isn't. You can see by all the moss everywhere. I mean, it's a lovely woodland, but all the moss and so on shows it's quite damp. And because it hasn't been very cold yet this autumn, there's still a lot of insects and slugs around. Of course, we're due to have very, very heavy rain coming in, possibly starting within the hour. So it won't be like this for much longer.
No, and it's going to stay like that.
And it's supposed to stay like that for the next 2 days. There are weather warnings and everything. But we're walking out tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
Back to the cars, and then we're both going off home. We were originally going to stay out until Sunday, but we'd already changed that plan anyway, and I'm glad now, because I think if we hadn't, we'd still be changing it, because we'd look at the forecast and think, do we want to stay out for 2 days of torrential rain
Yeah, exactly.
at the end of the trip?
Yeah.
So, you know, if it's the beginning of the trip or the middle of a trip, then you think, well, yeah, but the weather will be better when that's passed, so we'll cope with it.
Yeah.
When it's like, and it'll still be torrential rain when we go home, you might as well do it sooner rather than later.
Exactly, Look forward to another trip when hopefully the weather's a bit better.
Yeah.
So what else have you got in here? So you brought a different cooking system last time.
This is the MSR Pocket Rocket Deluxe stove, which I reckoned was the best of the, you know, canister top gas stoves that I've tried. And I've tried at least half a dozen of those available at the moment that I've tested, because this is so powerful. It really is, you know, very good. But the other thing I've really liked in the last year with gas is the jet boil stash, which comes as a unit with a stove. But unlike the other jet boils, it doesn't screw into the stove or anything. It just sits on top, exactly like it can sit on top of there.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. The stash stove is okay. It's probably mid-range for this type of burner.
Right.
You know, I mean, I enjoyed using it. It worked well. There's nothing wrong with it. But I did think, well, I wonder if the best stove like that I've used, plus this pot, how that will work. So that's what I've been using. And it is completely astonishing. It boils water practically, you know, as soon as you put it on there. It's really, really incredibly fast.
Wow.
And you can turn it down for simmer. And I think I'll have to weigh it when I get home. But given that I've now done 3 nights and 4 mornings cooking on it, the canister doesn't even feel half empty.
Right. Okay.
You know,
that has been, wow.
You know, I mean, if I picked up a canister like that at home and shook it, I'd think, oh yeah, I can get 3 or 4 days out of that.
Right.
So
okay.
But given the speed with which it works, it should be, if you see what I mean.
Right,
and obviously the key is having that
heat
exchanger on the bottom.
Yeah.
And that,
could you use it if it was windy? Would the wind affect it underneath?
Yeah, this is a bit better because it's got that round the burner.
Ah, right. Okay.
So that helps in a slight breeze. But I've got a foil windscreen.
So you did bring a foil windscreen as well?
Which is around here. Which I used the first, you know, it was windy the first camp.
Okay.
And so on.
Right.
So with any gas stove, I always bring a separate windscreen, which sits like that.
Yeah.
Which does make a difference.
And that Pocket Rocket has an igniter on it, is that right?
Yeah, which hasn't broken yet.
You haven't broken it? Yeah, I know, because I know you've always said that you have a history of breaking.
Yeah, I've never found very, very reliable, but this one is still working. But I always carry, you know, I've always got some means of lighting it.
Right, yeah.
Anyway, so it's...
Yes.
You know.
Okay, and then you brought a different sleeping bag with you.
Yeah, this is one I've had for a few years, but haven't used for a bit. This is Lightwave, and it's the Firelight, I think, 350. Yeah, Firelight 350. You know, comfort rating 4 and -2.
Right. Okay.
It's incredibly warm. I think that, you know, those comfort ratings are on the low side, and it only weighs 620 grams.
Right.
So
okay.
it's very light.
That is very light.
Very comfortable, and you can't quite see it here. It's also quite wide, so you've got room to move around in it. but the zip, it's upside down at the moment. The zip is positioned not quite at the side, but to one side of the top, if that makes sense.
Okay.
You know, so it's not so when you have, where's the hood? When you have the hood there, the zip is here.
Right, okay, yeah. So about halfway.
You know, so it's about
round, isn't it?
It's probably a fifth of the way over the top, so that when it's laid out, the zip, instead of being down the side, it's there.
Right, okay.
You can see it there. You can see
Yeah.
there's the hood. So
Yeah.
the zip is there, which just makes it slightly easier to use than one that's right down the side. But I mean, on this trip, I've never done the hood up anyway, because even at minus 0.5, the one temperature below freezing, I was easily warm enough in it.
Right, okay.
So it's excellent. And now I've used it for the first time in a few years, I shall probably use it again.
Right. And what else have you? So you brought this Atoms pack with you.
Oh yeah.
So this is your
This is
Atom
the
pack.
Atom packs, and it Mo 60, which is the biggest one. There's a Mo 50. There might be a Mo 40. I'm not certain about that, but it's got a frame. Well, it's got a single frame bar and a padded back, so it's quite a stiff back. You can bend it to your shape, but it's quite solid with the frame bar in there and a lumbar pad. You know, padded hip belt has double adjust buckles each side, but that makes, you know, quite a stable, comfortable carry.
How do you find that buckle system? Because I've always preferred just one thing to pull.
Frankly, I prefer just one, and I would like it if this buckle was bigger.
Right, okay.
Especially when you're wearing lots of clothing.
Yeah.
You know, I've got this on, got waterproof on,
So is
you're trying to fiddle with it.
On one side, or
No,
no?
there's two. It's two adjusters on each side.
Right, okay, I got you.
There's two on that side as well.
Yeah.
But the main thing is I'd like that buckle to be bigger,
Right.
and
okay.
the webbing a bit wider.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
just so it's easier to get hold of and
Yeah.
close and unclose. You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's, I mean, the design is a fairly, these days, conventional for an ultralight pack. I forget what it weighs, but it's under a kilo.
Right.
You know,
okay.
it is light. I mean, it's made of this X-Pack material, which is quite stiff and is said to be incredibly tough. So, and it's, you know, it's a roll top.
Right. Yeah.
with three buckles.
Are the seams sealed on that one, or is
No,
it just
no,
it's not?
but virtually no packs come with sealed seams. I mean, you know, it's too expensive because it has to be done by hand.
Yeah.
But it's got two side pockets, which are not mesh, as you can see, a Dyneema, which I think, you know, this is a tiny British cottage maker, so it's made in Britain. And Tom, who makes them, I think, says, you know, he doesn't think mesh side pockets are durable enough.
Right. Okay.
So it's, you know, this stuff which is much tougher, adjustable. There is mesh on the front, so you've got a big mesh pocket on here,
And is that
which
big
you've got
enough
my
to
other
put a
trousers
lot
in
of
it.
stuff in?
Well, I managed to get in, you know, the tent and my waterproofs,
Right.
because
okay.
it is,
It's
you
quite
can see,
stretchy,
it's
isn't it?
very stretchy.
Yes.
And you've got shock cord on the outside and on the sides. I mean, when we went up into the corries, it was very easy, you know, to close this pack down in size to make it into a day pack.
Right. Okay.
It didn't feel like too big with stuff thrashing around in
Yeah.
it because of all the cords. An oddity it's got, which I keep intending to use and forget, is it's got a mesh pocket on the bottom.
Oh right. Yeah.
A
Rubbish. And
A stuff pocket
isn't it?
to put anything in as you, you know. I mean, obviously it's got a base of this fabric underneath, so
Yeah.
if this did wear out, which it hasn't yet, but I've never remember it's there to use it.
Yes.
But it's also got as optional. I've got one is a zip pocket.
Right. Yeah.
You know, which is detachable for the hip
Yeah.
belt if you want it.
And do you like the hip pockets? I would
Oh,
find them very useful.
I like, yeah, well, yes, I do. I like the hip pocket, yeah. Yeah, and it's got, you know, a waterproof zip, and it didn't leak when we were in the rain
Right,
the other day,
yeah.
so, you know.
Oh, that's good.
It's got two of these here which I never use,
Mm-hmm.
but I know you like them.
Yeah.
Other people do. Don't know if you get your water bottles in
I
that
don't
one.
know. It
You
doesn't
might.
look very big.
You know,
does it?
I mean, I've never even tried because I, you know,
you don't use them.
if they were detachable, I'd take them off.
right,
But they're
okay.
not. They're sewn on and sewn down the seam.
Yeah.
I mean, you could cut them off and so on, but even then, you have bits of them left.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, they don't look very big. And I did notice that they're quite high up on your shoulders when you were wearing it.
They
were
are
like
quite high up,
almost on
yeah.
your shoulder blades.
Yeah,
rather
they're up here. Yeah.
rather than sort of down
Yeah.
more a bit
but-
lower.
That's the pack anyway.
And have you been
I've been
very happy
fine.
with all the bits that you have used?
Yes. I mean, nothing's let me down,
No.
has it?
Do you want to just...
The shoes have been great, which are the latest Lone Peak Ultra 7, I think, now.
Right, okay.
wide fit.
Lone Peak 7.
And they're really, you know, Lone Peak 7, yeah, they're really lightweight, but they've been fine on, as you know, a huge mixture of terrain
Right, yes.
that we've walked
Yeah.
on, from bogs and rocky mountain corries, you know, stony and muddy mountain paths, and today mostly on stony bulldoze roads,
Right, yes.
which is probably the hardest thing underfoot, in fact, to the roads. But
Yeah,
but they've been fine.
And you had the same pad as last time,
It's the X.
Thermarest.
It's the X-Lite, yeah.
So you had that
Yeah.
one in the previous camp when,
Yeah.
when we were on that.
Yeah, I think, certainly for UK use, it's by far the best. You know, it's a bit heavier than the Uberlite, but you can use it year round. It's a bit lighter than the X-Therm, but the X-Therm is heavier, far more expensive, and completely overkill if it's not freezing.
Right, okay.
Whereas for the sort of cold weather temperatures we usually get, you know, this is fine. You don't need something that will keep you warm at -30 in the UK.
Right,
So,
yes.
so I think it's great for year-round use.
Yeah. And what shelter have you got here?
Uh,
I mean, obviously we know, but let us have
Thi-
your,
this
your
is- this-
thoughts and opinions.
This is the Mountain Laurel Designs Solar Mid XL. For quite a few years, particularly in winter, I've been using the Dura Mid XL, which is excellent. And this is basically a fair bit smaller version of that. You know, the Dura Mid XL being designed for 2, though I've only ever used it solo.
Yeah.
But it's got plenty of room in there. You've got tons of room for cooking and storing gear in front of the pole. It's designed so that a third of it's not symmetrical. A third of the space is in front of the pole, and 2/3 is behind. Is behind the pole.
Right, there's
Rather-
a lot of space in that.
Rather than having the pole in the centre, which in a shelter this small, you know, it would be awkward. If you had the pole in the centre, wherever you slept, you feel restricted. So it's a clever design. It's designed to be pitched with a trekking pole of at least 140 centimetres. Not many trekking poles go to 140 centimetres. I mean, you know, and certainly the pacer poles that I've got go to 130 centimetres, and I've used it with that pacer pole. Yeah, and the walls close in a bit because you can't get it high enough. This pole, which is trying out, this is pacer pole tops with the bottom section of an old pole of mine that does go to 140 centimetres.
Right.
The trouble is, as we found in the wind yesterday, at 140 centimetres, it wobbles, it's not very stable, because you're at the maximum length of the pole, and ideally with any trekking pole you don't use it at the maximum length. And also this bottom section is nowhere near as good as a pacer pole bottom section. So I think I'm going to have to get a pole to go with it. I mean, with the Duramid XL, I used the pole from the Wiki Up 3 and the old Go Like Shangri-La 3, which is a really strong pole. But it's too long for this one. You can't get it down below about 150, and if you pitch this with 150, you've got very steep walls, but you've also got a big gap all the way round because you've lifted it too high. So I think I need to get a purpose-made 145 centimetre pole, because there's no point buying a trekking pole of that length when I would never use it for trekking, because I'd always use the pacer poles anyway.
Exactly.